Right. Hi, my name is Rick Whitney.
And I'm Sherry Whitney,
Wonderful.
and we've been Christians for a long time,
Long time.
since the mid-70s.
All right, so Rick and Sherry have allowed me to come into their home. I'm going to read a quick something why we're kind of doing these interviews. So, as an overview of Joshua 3 and 4, so in Joshua 3 and 4, God parts the Jordan River, and it's the second time he does this. And when he does it, he commands each of the leaders of the 12 tribes to pick up a stone from the river and to carry it across and make a monument. It says in chapter 4, verse 21, "In the future, when your descendants ask their parents, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them, 'Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over.'" And then in verse 24 it says, "He did this so that all peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so you might always fear the Lord your God." So the hope here with these videos is to provide our church with some of these stories as metaphorical stones that we can use to build a monument or a reminder. So this leads me to what I wanted to ask you two about, which is what has happened in your life that you look back on and are reminded of how good God has been and how powerful he is. You can tell as much of your story as you'd like. Kind of what makes you hold on to faith?
Well, it took a while for me to recognize God. I'd been through quite a bit later on in my life. I was drafted and ended up going into the Navy for 4 years. And
Vietnam.
yeah, spent some time in Vietnam. And I got out, and our country was not in a very good place at the time. And I wasn't in a very good place mentally at that time. And I was very cynical, and I was just kind of pondering what I wanted to do with my life. So I went back to school, and I look back and think I'm so incredibly grateful that God got me through those times where I was a mess, a bigger mess. And so I went back to school, and through some friends, some mutual friends, Sherry and I met. And we dated, and we fell in love, and we got married. And that in itself, to me at that time, looking back, it was a miracle that she would marry me. While we'd gone to community college, junior college, and then we both came up to Tallahassee to Florida State. And so I guess I was in school for maybe 6 months or a year or so before we decided to get married. So I quit school and went down to West Palm Beach, and I got a job there through Sherry's cousin. And then I injured my ankle real bad and ended up coming back to Florida State. And that's where my idea was to go back to school. Well, that's where Sherry had graduated, and she was working at the university, and she met somebody who introduced her to the church, but I'll let her tell you that story.
Well, I was one of those people that was always searching, and I knew that what I had experienced, there had to be a lot more. So I remember when I was a senior in college, I got myself a New Living Bible, and I was determined. I read it, and this is while we were dating, before we got married. I read it from front to back, and because I was so determined to grow close to God. At the same time, I was going to churches because I knew there was more, and I was trying to find churches that appeared to be more Bible believing. But when we had come back, well, that's right, had come back to Tallahassee because we got married. Rick went down, we got married, he went down to South Florida. We did together, or I joined him after we got married, came back up after a year because it was interesting. It was a horrible economy, it was the Arab oil embargo. So he was selling Prudential life insurance, and it was, and God worked. Between that and breaking and spraining a serious sprain in his ankle, so he could no longer do what he did, and we ended up going back for him to finish his last semester. And that during that semester, I walked into a church and I heard preaching like I had never heard before. I heard God's word preached powerfully, and I knew that it felt like home, to be honest. And I had been looking for years. And Rick was fine that I would do my religious thing, but he saw at a certain point during that time that he expressed to me, I can see that you love Jesus more than you love me. And he said, you're enough for me, why am I not enough for you? Mm-hmm. And he said, you have to choose me or Jesus. And my response to him was, well, I love you enough to risk that you might leave because I would like for you to also become a Christian. And I know our future is going to be totally different if we love God and are in a right relationship with God. And he all but left me, but didn't. He threatened to several times. But then by the grace of God, he met brothers and sisters. We went to a particular event, and he saw relationships like he had not had. And he was a guy that always had friends, but he saw godly relationships that I believe spoke to him. And really within about 8 months, 9 months.
It was about 8 months.
Yeah,
After.
he was baptized after I had been baptized. But I mean, that was, to me, that was like God powerfully working, because I remember having my greatest joys and my deepest sadness, and at the same time my greatest joy when I was going through those difficult times, because I would see the little things God was doing, and it deepened my faith in an amazing way. And the fact that he became a Christian was just, I didn't think that he would. I did not have the faith that he would. But God blessed my faith to stay with the church in a difficult time, and I will be forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
So,
Rick, what was it for you that you saw that was kind of the turning point?
Well, up to that point, I had been invited or approached by different people over the years to come to church with them and this and that. And to me, they were out there doing the same things I was. And I said, why fool with that? If they're, you're supposed to be, I not having any biblical knowledge or bearing at all, I knew that shouldn't be. And so I was even more cynical about church and religion at that time. I think I had a view that there was a higher power than people, but I didn't know anything more than that, or didn't think anything more than that. And there was a brother, Jim Patterson, that reached out to me, and some of the other guys, reached out to me and tried to get me there, but I had no interest. And so he came over. We had him and his wife Cindy over for supper one night. I was still in school, and we were having spaghetti, and Sherry had salads, and we had dressing and thing. Well, rather than use the dressing, he took his spaghetti sauce and put it all over a salad.
We knew that was the clue that he was a little bit nervous.
Just a little nervous.
So anyway, that, and how he reacted to that, and how we all, they were real. And I could see that, and that was encouraging to me. People that, just these pious fronts that people put on, and they're just not real. And they were real. They became very special friends over time. And then I started going to what was called Soul Talks at the time in Alumni Village. And it was just interesting, the comments and things, and how I perceived myself was far different than how they saw me, how the guys that were Christians at the time. And I learned over time that, not to think quite as highly of myself than I did at the time, and having more a godly perspective on things. And so I learned from them going to the Soul Talks, and I eventually went, there was, I think, a church retreat, and Bruce Williams, Verlin Harp, and I'm sure some other brothers spoke. And there was something I heard, and I can't to this day remember what it was. Something I heard that really made me think. And I started thinking, this is real. And I started paying closer attention. I started going to church, started paying closer attention to what was being said. And eventually I remember asking two guys, all right, this is where I am. What do I do now? Just like in Acts 2, in a sense. And I had some more, some more biblical understandings, and I was eventually baptized. And that baptistry was cold. It was in October, so there was no heat in that baptistry.
Oh, but that was cold.
But that was an incredible day for me, for Sherry and I, and I just so thankful for Sherry's faithfulness, and over the years we've had to. I know I had to learn so much from God, what I should be as a married man and then a father, and I've learned. I continue to learn. Our children I had no desire to have children before that. And after a while, I say, yes, I do want to have children. I have something solid to teach them. And we did our best to try to incorporate that into our home life.
Yeah.
And God has blessed us incredibly with our children, with each other.
Church.
He's blessed me with Sherry. I'm not sure she feels the same.
I bet so, from what she tells me.
I am grateful.
Can I throw a loop ball question at y'all? Has there ever been, because, once you become a Christian, they say it's all sunshine and rainbows, right?
No.
Was there ever a point where you thought, after you became Christians, you know what, maybe this isn't worth it, or you know what, this is hard, and then you came to realize, oh my goodness, you were reinvigorated with God's goodness? Was there ever any times afterward that you thought about throwing in the towel, or you thought, I don't understand God?
I will just answer, say we went through some difficult times in the church situation we were in at a certain point, and we didn't know what the future would bring. But God provided in an amazing way because we were faithful. We didn't give up on God, even though a situation became very difficult. God blessed us with a body of believers that were just what we needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that there are times in your life when Satan is going to do everything he can to tell you it's not worth it, it's too hard, people are always going to let you down, but God never will. And that was, I think, the lesson we learned. Even though we didn't know how God would work things out, we feel blessed that we were taken care of in ways we didn't understand at the time. I would say that without going into great detail.
Yeah.
And God has always been there to lift us up in the most difficult of times. And when you're raising kids, there are some challenging times because you have another human being that you're concerned about their soul and their well-being, and
Yeah.
so it's a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine doing it without God. I would say.
I like that. If did you have something, Mr. Rick?
Yeah, I was going to add to that a little bit.
Yeah.
I know there were times when it was just challenging, and I don't know, it ran through my head that I've had enough of this, but I came to my senses in a way. I said, I do not want to go back to what I was. And I think, I said, I'm gonna push through this. I'm gonna get through this. God will get me through, which He did. And I'm just gonna keep on going. And yeah, it's tough times. I knew, Jesus talked about it. It's not gonna be easy sometimes. You just gotta keep going, which He did.
Mm-hmm. You've already said a good bit, but if there were somebody younger, not that there's many younger people in the church, but if there was someone younger that really didn't have a whole lot of life to look back on to see that, God is faithful, they didn't have that perspective of the years, and they came to you and wanted to say, well, how do you know that God is faithful? Do you have any sort of encouragement for those people, or what is and you've already said so much, but what would you briefly tell them?
Oh, briefly, that's tough. I think for me it was being faithful, even though I wasn't sure how it was all going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
And afterward, I could look back and see an
The hand of
incredible,
God.
yes, incredible ways that God blesses us. Not how we think. It's not how you can see it. I need a new car. Go, pew. It's what it does to your heart, to your mind, to how you love, and it takes so much of the worry and I don't know, the complications of life.
The uncertainty.
It takes so much of that out of it when I can depend on God. I don't know how this is all going to play out. I've got to remain faithful, and I know, God, you'll take care of this. And whether it's something I need to change or somebody else or the situation, I don't know. Yeah. It's just God is faithful, like He says He is.
I keep thinking He will not give us more than we can bear.
Mm-hmm.
We have that promise. But when we are tested, He will give us a way out. Mm-hmm. And that's really the test, because life will throw those at you and when you least expect it. And you've got to not let Satan win those battles, because he is there and he wants to destroy your faith. That's his goal. He wants to destroy Christians. If you're not a Christian, he's okay. He's already he has you, but he does want to destroy the faith of many. And if we understand that, and we understand that God is on our side. And that's where faith comes in. You know, that I have to believe that God is going to work this out. He's going to teach me what I need to learn. And He's going to provide me a way out of something that may seem impossible or overwhelming. That's what I would say. Just know those promises of God and believe them. And you will have opportunity to exercise that faith.
Yeah.
You know? And God will see that you do, because He wants your faith to grow. And it's only in the challenging times sometimes that we have the greatest growth opportunity. I wish it weren't so, you know, but that's what I've seen in my life. Sometimes the most difficult situations is when I will see growth, because I've had to turn to God in a way that I may not have had to in the good times. Unfortunately, I may have chosen not to.
And God puts people in our lives that are godly, that will help me be more godly. And that has been an incredible strength for me over many years, that other people that have been in my life, that it you know, I can't say enough about those special people in my life that have helped me, encouraged me, and helped guide me into right, godly decisions. That's I can't say enough about that.
Yeah.
And I think God allows us to go through those things so that we can help others, as Scripture says. And I rest on that. I am grateful for that. And I want to be that person that is able to encourage another person, maybe going through something I've been through. And at this point in our life, we've been through quite a few things. So
I could attest to where y'all have been there for me. So
oh,
there's one person. So yes, y'all have definitely accomplished that one. Yeah, I'm sure you could talk for hours about all of the ways where people have been there.
I think the godly wife He provided me, and that can't be. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's every day.
and I am far from perfect. Just so you know.
What?
Wait a minute.
I'm far from perfect,
Just
but by the grace
my
of
balloon.
but by the grace of God, you know, and I'm just grateful that He sees the good in me, because I'm so aware of the points at which I fail. You know,
Aren't
but
we all?
He's an encourager, and I just think that's what the body is all about, and that's why it is so important to be a part of a body that is truly acting as the body of Christ, because that's where your needs are going to be met, and where you're going to be able to have the opportunity to meet other needs of people.
I love it.
That's my thought.
I love it. I love it. Anything else y'all feel like is really, really need to say? Y'all have said a lot that's so encouraging.
I don't know.
I'm very grateful that y'all let me into your home and let me do this with y'all.
Thank you
We're
for
glad you
asking.
came.
We weren't real sure what to expect, but we're grateful to have an opportunity to share.
Did we get a door prize?
Oh, I left them. I'll get them next week. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.